Carl Jung uncovered something that still unsettles psychologists today. The moment a gentle, compassionate person stops playing the victim and turns into a calculated force becomes the most frightening shift in human behavior. Today, I'm showing you precisely how this unfolds and why you must understand it. Jung spent decades studying what he called the awakened ones. These weren't ordinary people going through change. These were empaths who had endured years of mistreatment, analyzed their abusers with near clinical precision, and then snapped in a way that was both deliberate and controlled. Their transformation didn't just alter their own lives. It reshaped how we interpret human psychology entirely. Because here's the unsettling truth Jung revealed. The kindest individuals aren't fragile. They're weapons waiting to be sharpened. Jung's case files from his Zurich clinic uncovered a repeating pattern that appeared over and over. Patient after patient arrived carrying nearly identical wounds. These were empaths who had been gradually destroyed by the very people who claimed to love them. They showed up with bruises they found excuses for. They came with depression they believed was their own fault. They arrived with anxiety they tried desperately to manage. They carried a universal habit of apologizing simply for existing. But Jung recorded something that chilled him. These people hadn't merely lived through abuse. They had been observing it like researchers gathering data in a laboratory. When Jung asked them to describe their relationships, he expected the scattered thinking common in trauma survivors. He expected denial, confusion, or the typical psychological disarray he had seen countless times. What he found overturned everything he believed about empaths and their capacity for psychological evolution. These patients kept intricate mental logs of every person who had ever harmed them. They understood their abusers' triggers down to the finest detail. They grasped their insecurities as if following an instruction guide. They had charted emotional patterns with the accuracy of military planners preparing a strategic operation. They could foresee reactions, anticipate deflections, and detect lies before the sentences were even finished. And despite all this insight, they had never used it. Not once, not even to protect themselves. Not until something forced them past their limits and activated it. Jung wrote that the empath's mind isn't a victim's diary filled with grievances. It's a strategist's command center, complete with maps and coordinated plans, waiting for ignition. He realized he wasn't working with helpless victims. He was sitting in front of what he called hidden psychological prodigies, people whose capabilities had been muted by years of conditioning. Take Anna, one of Jung's most remarkable cases from his private practice. Her brilliance wasn't in art or creativity. It was in emotional excavation. She could uncover someone's deepest wounds just by observing their facial expressions for mere seconds. She could detect lies not through anything mystical, but through tiny behavioral shifts most people never perceive. Jung began testing her abilities in ways that shocked him and pushed his understanding of human perception. He brought in colleagues without giving Anna a single detail about them. No background, no context, no clues about their struggles. Within minutes, she identified their childhood traumas with startling precision. She outlined their relationship patterns accurately. She pinpointed their professional insecurities and buried fears. Her accuracy rate was 97%, which Jung documented carefully in his private notes. Jung started to grasp something revolutionary about empathic intelligence. Empaths don't just feel more deeply than others, as standard psychology suggested. They process emotional information faster and more accurately than almost anyone, in ways that appear nearly superhuman. Their brains are built for advanced pattern recognition in human behavior at a level most people never achieve. What others call instinct or lucky guessing, empaths recognize as data gathering. It's rapid emotional pattern analysis running constantly in the background of every interaction, every conversation, every social moment. They're reading micro-expressions, vocal shifts, posture changes, energetic cues, and countless subtle data points at once while seeming to simply listen. But society taught Anna that this ability was a burden she needed to hide. every time she tried to articulate what she perceived, every time she exposed lies or manipulation or hidden motives others pretended not to notice. She was told she was too sensitive or too emotional. People insisted she was imagining things. They labeled her paranoid, dramatic, or creating conflict where none existed. She learned to silence herself to blend in, to question her perceptions even when they felt undeniably true, to apologize for seeing what others were unwilling or unable to acknowledge. She learned that telling the truth made her the issue, so she stopped speaking and began absorbing quietly. But truth doesn't disappear just because you stop voicing it. It builds like pressure inside a sealed chamber. It rises and rises without release. And in Anna's case, it had been accumulating for 28 years, forming a psychological pressure that would one day need an outlet. Empaths aren't damaged. They're alchemists in the making. This ties directly into what Jung called the danger of perceiving what others cannot, which he viewed as one of his most significant findings. Superior perception often results in isolation because truth-tellers are seldom welcomed. When you clearly recognize what groups prefer to overlook, when you point out the obvious issue everyone silently agreed to pretend doesn't exist, you become a mirror society cannot face without discomfort. The highly perceptive individual exposes problems already present within the collective unconscious, problems groups have unconsciously decided to bury. This makes them targets for shadow projection, where people lash out at them for revealing truths they refuse to acknowledge within themselves. The messenger becomes the enemy simply for delivering something uncomfortable. Jung repeatedly documented this pattern in his clinical work. The one who sees clearly is blamed for creating problems they are merely witnessing. When Anna softly suggested someone seemed troubled or hiding something, that person would lash out at her for being negative or stirring up drama. When she voiced concerns about obvious issues in relationships or family dynamics, people accused her of being judgmental or inventing problems when none existed. This wasn't random or unfortunate coincidence. It was psychological defense functioning at the group level. Jung recognized that most people find it easier to attack the person showing them their shadow than to examine the shadow itself. This produces what he called the scapegoat phenomenon. Highly perceptive individuals become the designated problem in nearly every group they join, not because they create conflict, but because they reveal conflicts the group tacitly agrees to ignore in order to preserve their shared illusions. Jung understood that Anna wasn't experiencing a breakdown, as her family assumed. She was undergoing a breakthrough that would fundamentally reshape her psyche. The shift occurred through what Jung described as shadow integration under extreme pressure. The catalyst was always the same in his cases, appearing with such consistency that he recorded it as universal. Betrayal. Not just any betrayal, but betrayal by someone the empath had trusted completely and protected through silence. Again and again, Jung observed the same storyline unfolding. The empath uncovered infidelity, financial deception, or emotional manipulation from the person closest to them, someone they defended, someone they made excuses for, someone they gave endless chances despite noticing every warning sign. What made it shattering wasn't only the act itself. It was the realization that they had noticed the signs all along and pushed them aside. They had muted their own perceptions to preserve the relationship. They had doubted their own insight to avoid conflict. Then came what Jung called the clarity event, a moment of psychological crystallization. The instant when the empath's pattern recognition finally overpowered their desire to believe the best in others. When the evidence became too overwhelming for denial to survive. When accumulated truth demanded recognition. Most people assumed empaths would cry, panic, or break down emotionally. Their abusers expected chaos they could manipulate. The same tactics that had always worked before. They anticipated guilt, apologies, another cycle of the empath accepting blame for everyone else's actions. What unfolded instead terrified everyone involved and permanently altered the dynamic. The empaths became unnervingly calm. Jung described it as the moment the victim realizes they've been playing chess while everyone else thought it was checkers. A switch flipped inside them that could never be reversed. The fog evaporated, and everything sharpened into pristine clarity. These empaths didn't retaliate in the usual sense. They didn't rage or destroy. They simply began speaking truth with surgical precision. They revealed everything they had noticed, recorded, and silently endured for years. Not out of cruelty, but with exactness. Like surgeons identifying diseased organs before removal. Like investigators presenting irrefutable evidence. This wasn't revenge born of emotion. It was truth finally expressed after years of suppression. Jung saw that these empaths were now using their gift of total perception not to justify behavior, but to expose it with the full weight of their accumulated insight. He called this shadow integration, the union of once split aspects of the self. The moment someone stops denying the parts of themselves they were trained to hide. The empath's shadow wasn't evil, despite what they'd been told. It was their unexpressed intelligence, their muted intuition, their buried strength. It was their ability to set boundaries, to say no, to leave toxicity without guilt. When they finally integrated these parts of themselves, they became what Jung considered psychologically complete. Not flawless, but exhibiting what he regarded as the most dangerous psychological state he ever encountered. Shadow projection fused with absolute certainty. This is what Jung warned about extensively in his work on the risks posed by unintegrated individuals to both people and society. Manipulators see in others the traits they refuse to accept in themselves. They project their own capacity for deception, cruelty, and selfishness onto everyone around them while maintaining unwavering belief in their own innocence. They accuse others of precisely what they themselves are doing. They generate what Jung referred to as reality distortion fields. They don't merely misinterpret people. They persuade others to adopt their warped viewpoint, pulling allies into their fabricated narrative. Jung observed how shadow projectors unconsciously draw others into their altered reality through a process he termed collective possession. When someone delivers their projections with absolute certainty, with unwavering confidence, others feel psychological pressure to match their perceptions to the projector's conviction rather than trust their own conflicting observations. It's far easier to conform to the group than to stand alone with the truth. This is how families turn against scapegoated members who are actually the healthiest people within the system. How workplaces unite against innocent employees who disrupt shared illusions. How communities destroy individuals through projected accusations with no grounding in reality. The projector becomes the eye of a psychological storm, unknowingly arranging others into attacking the qualities they cannot face within themselves. But awakened empaths become impervious to this manipulation. They trust their perceptions fully now. They see emotional games forming long before they take shape. They recognize recruitment attempts instantly. They cannot be gaslit because they have learned to rely on their inner reality rather than external pressure. Their pattern recognition, sharpened through years of observation, allows them to detect manipulation before it embeds itself in their mind. Jung wrote that the awakened empath becomes a living lie detector, not from superiority, but from clarity and presence. This resistance to projection is what makes integrated empaths so threatening to toxic systems. They reveal dysfunction simply by refusing to support collective delusions anymore. Their very existence becomes a destabilizing force to structures built on deception. Jung spent years tracking these transformed patients after their integration, documenting how their lives unfolded. What he discovered kept him awake at night, contemplating the consequences. These individuals became extraordinarily effective in ways that appeared almost supernatural to observers. Their businesses thrived because they could sense clients' real needs before those needs were spoken. Their new relationships were balanced because they could identify emotional predators within minutes, sometimes seconds. Their choices became impeccable because they trusted their intuitive intelligence without endlessly questioning themselves. Jung realized something that made his hands tremble as he recorded it late into the night. These empaths had not become less empathetic through their transformation. as most would assume. They had become perfectly empathetic, which also made them perfectly strategic. They understood human psychology at a depth that made them nearly unstoppable in social environments. They could manipulate others as effortlessly as they had once been manipulated, if they wanted to. They could dismantle anyone who had harmed them, using the detailed psychological maps they had constructed over years. They possessed the knowledge, the insight, and now the resolve to use it when necessary. They knew exactly which buttons to press, which wounds to activate, which insecurities to target. But here is what truly unsettled Jung and made him question everything. These transformed empaths chose not to wield this power destructively. They could have dismantled everyone who ever hurt them. They had the information, the emotional intelligence, and the strategic mastery. They had years of legitimate resentment and justified anger. Instead, they permanently removed toxic people from their lives and moved forward. They redirected their strength into building rather than tearing down. They chose creation over revenge. Jung observed this same choice surface repeatedly in different cases, cultures, and backgrounds. He called this the integrated empath, someone who possesses both the sensitivity to feel deeply and the wisdom to discern what is worthy of their energy. These individuals had become what manipulators fear most. Someone who sees through them entirely, yet needs nothing from them. Someone with nothing to prove and nothing to lose. The awakened empath's presence disrupted every system they had once held together, like a stone thrown into a still pond. Family dynamics fell apart, not because these empaths actively destroyed them, but because they stopped cushioning dysfunction. They stopped being the unpaid therapist, the emotional sponge, the scapegoat absorbing everyone's projections. Alcoholic relatives were forced to confront their addictions without empaths to absorb emotional fallout. Depressed family members had to find validation elsewhere. Manipulative siblings could no longer treat these transformed empaths as psychological punching bags or emotional servants. The entire structure was forced to reorganize without its former anchor. Jung identified something he called the empath's mirror effect. These transformed individuals didn't have to confront people's dysfunction directly anymore. Their presence alone reflected it back with startling clarity. Manipulators couldn't tolerate being around them because they felt exposed, transparent, unable to use their usual psychological tricks. Their tactics, once reliable, now failed instantly. Meanwhile, genuine people felt safer with these empaths than ever before because there were no hidden motives, no appeasing, just honest connection rooted in mutual respect. This shift pushed everyone around them either to grow or to reveal their true character. There was no longer any middle ground. The healthy people in their lives strengthened through their example. They felt motivated to confront their own shadows and establish their own boundaries. Meanwhile, toxic individuals exposed themselves through frantic attempts to drag these empaths back into old cycles using guilt, manipulation, or by rallying others to pressure them. Jung realized he had witnessed what he described as the weaponization of compassion. These individuals embodied the highest level of psychological development he had ever observed. Not detached or hardened, but deliberate and selective with their generosity. They had become what he called love with boundaries, people who can care profoundly while protecting themselves completely. Individuals capable of offering empathy without sacrificing themselves on the altar of someone else's dysfunction. Jung's findings revealed something that still unsettles psychologists today. Empaths aren't natural victims, contrary to what society repeats. They are naturally powerful. The world simply teaches them to bury that power to remain acceptable, pleasant, or easy to control. When empaths finally snap, they aren't shattering. They're awakening to abilities they have always possessed, but were taught to suppress for the comfort of others. The path isn't about becoming less sensitive, as common advice suggests. It's about becoming intentionally sensitive, using sensitivity as the extraordinary strength it truly is. Jung concluded that these people didn't transform into someone new. They became who they always were beneath the conditioning. their kindness remained, but now it was reinforced with a backbone forged from steel. Every empath will encounter their moment of transformation. The question isn't if, but when. The betrayal so deep it forces a choice between staying a victim or becoming sovereign. The real question isn't whether the empath will snap, but whether they'll integrate their shadow consciously, like the cases Jung documented, or let life force the integration through collapse and crisis. The world doesn't need more shattered empaths absorbing everyone's pain like emotional sponges. It needs awakened ones who understand their value, trust their perceptions, and refuse to shrink themselves for anyone's comfort. Jung's case records show that transformation is not only possible, it is inevitable for those with this gift. Your sensitivity is not your weakness. It is your weapon, and the day you learn to use it consciously is the day you become truly powerful. Not dangerous to good people, but dangerous to anyone who would exploit your nature. If you recognize yourself in this pattern of awakening, leave a comment below sharing which stage resonates most with your path. And if you want to dive deeper into Jung's groundbreaking insights into human psychology, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future explorations into consciousness. Thanks for watching, and I'll meet you in the next dimension.